Good morning, everyone. We are waiting for the last speakers and then we can start. Thank you.
I'm still communicating with the last speaker. I think he has some problem with the connection. Maybe we can wait for another minute.
Thank you, Pak.
Bonjour, Sébastien. We can start. So selamat pagi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar around Indonesian agriculture and fisheries in the era of digital today. I will let the floor to Sébastien, our president of the Indonesian French Chamber of Commerce. Please, Sébastien, it's yours.
Thank you, Pierre-Marie. Dear participants, on behalf of IFCCI, I'm very pleased to welcome you to this webinar organized by the Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia in Paris, the Indonesian French Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Relecom partner on the future of Indonesia's agriculture and fisheries in the digital era. We'll have the opportunity today to discuss this topic with several prominent speakers who honor us with their presence, coming from the agriculture and the maritime industry, including the Indonesian government and the private sector. So why discussing this topic of the future of Indonesia's agriculture and fisheries in the digital era today? As you know for sure, this sector, the agricultural and fisheries sector, is one of the backbone of the Indonesian economy and is key for its growth and development. Agriculture, forestry, and fishery represented 13.1% of the Indonesian GDP in 2021. Even if the contribution of the sector is for sure, declining or decreasing with time in terms of economic value creation for Indonesia, it still remains very important, and a significant portion of the Indonesian population is still dependent on this sector. This sector contributes to poverty alleviation, job creation, and income generation of the country. It employs more than 33 million people, with an increase of the share of the Indonesian youth working in this sector over the year, according to Statistics Indonesia. At the same time, over the last year, Indonesia has seen a rapid advancement of digitalization, reinforced for sure with the COVID crisis. Digital economy is growing very fast in Indonesia. $44 billion value in 2020, predicted to reach 124 billion in 2025. While we could have thought that traditional sector, such as agriculture and fishery, would have been left behind with digitalization, it has not been the case for sure. Innovation has impacted a lot of sectors in Indonesia and through the world. Banking sector with fintech, logistics, trading activities with e-commerce, health with health tech, and then also agriculture with agri-tech. Indonesia has been very innovative in this space and has developed a burgeoning startup scene in the agriculture sector. We can name TaniHub, Kedai Sayur, or Fisheries, e-Fishery, just a few names among others. Those digital solutions that have been developed in Indonesia are bringing farmer, fishermen closer to customer. They are reducing intermediaries while allowing those people to reach new markets, whether in Indonesia and abroad. It brings more value, more income to all the stakeholders of the sector by increasing productivity, efficiency, and competitiveness. To even speed up the digitalization of the agriculture and fisheries sector and harvest further benefits, Indonesia can cooperate with other countries that have already implemented digital solutions. France is one of them, with more than 180 agri-tech companies and the use of digital economy throughout the supply chain, production, distribution, and marketing. Fishing technology are also used widely in the maritime sector. The French government has even set a roadmap for agriculture and digitalization earlier this year. Quite naturally, the digitalization of the agriculture and the fisheries sector can trigger some cooperation opportunities between Indonesia and France, considering the existing strong ties between the two countries. And the Indonesian-French Chamber of Commerce and Industry is here to promote this collaboration and assist French companies that would like to invest in this sector in Indonesia. During this webinar, our speakers from various stakeholders in the agriculture and maritime industry from Indonesia and France will discuss policies and strategy in developing the sector through digital solutions and share their views on opportunity and obstacle on how those digital solutions can achieve inclusivity in the sector and on how our two countries can collaborate together. So without further ado, I would like now to give back the mic to Pierre-Marie for the start of this webinar.
Merci, Sébastien. Thank you for your great introduction. Finally, you said more than almost all the things I wanted to say. So you've done your job. I didn't. Thank you. We would love to. So today our speakers are His Excellency Mohamed Omar, your ambassador, the ambassador of Indonesia in Paris. Unfortunately, he's not physically attending because he's assisting the president in Brussels. You know that it is the birthday of the ASEAN-Europe relationship. We will hear then the director of digital economy, Mr. Nayoman, after. We will have indeed Dr. Ade Kandajijaya, head of international cooperation at the Ministry of Agriculture. Mr. Dr. Jean-Marc Roda from CIRAD in France, Mr. Thomas Voisin from SPAG, InVivo Group. InVivo is a great cooperative we have in France. Mr. Boma Christing, a specialist in capture fishery at the Ministry of Fisheries. As said by Sébastien, the agriculture and the fisheries represent lots of investment. We are talking about more or less $25 billion annually. Foreign investment represent 1/3. So some of yours can assert that it is only, but when we are talking about $10 billion foreign investment, it is massive. It is 1/3. In France, it represents less than 15%. In Indonesia, we have more or less 35 million farmers. Most of them, it represents 93%, are small farmers. Less than small farmers are considered with below 100 hectares lands. So let's give the mic to His Excellency Mohamed Omar first, and then I will pass to Mr. Nayoman then after. Thank you. Sorry, but we don't hear anything. Is it normal? Technical issue. Maybe we can restart. Or maybe you do, you know, in order to save time, let's circumvent the protocol first and listen to Mr. Nayoman. And once the message from His Excellency works, let's go back to his message. Please, Mr. Nayoman, could you introduce yourself
Yes.
and explain a bit your role and your consideration today at the ministry for whatever concern the digital economy, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Pierre-Marie. Good morning and bonjour, French, and good afternoon, Indonesia. My great pleasure to be here, and thanks for the invitation. And my name is Nyoman Adiarna. I'm a Director of Digital Economy, Ministry of Communication and Information. In my directorate or in my ministry, we have a priority program we call as digital transformation in 6 priority sectors, which is including agriculture and maritime. I think I have not yet. Please, I will start my presentation after this, after my introduction. And actually, yeah, please start with the first slide. Yes. Then we in the 6 priority sectors, we introduce we call it pilot project for the adoption of digital technology in agriculture and fishery. One of them, for example, we introduced the use of Internet of Things, and also in the forms of like weather sensors and soil fertility sensor, so we can improve the productivity of the agriculture in the certain areas. Then we also make use of the water sensor for the shrimp aquaculture, so we can measure precisely the pH and the temperature and also the oxygen level, etc. This kind of project actually we have done more than 4 years, and since this is piloting, so we expect that at the end, this kind of project should be scaled up in the large scale, working together with our partner, Ministry of Maritime and Fishery and Ministry of Agriculture. So this is my presentation. Basically, is the highlight of what we are now working in my ministry. So I will quite quickly to make this presentation, since I think my time is only less than 10 minutes. Okay, this is the presentation. Next slide, please. Then actually, this is based on the guidelines from the president during the pandemic. And the president himself we have to prepare the roadmap for digital transformation in the strategic sectors, including maritime and agriculture. And there is another national priority program in my ministry, including the digital infrastructure and data center. And the next one. I think digital infrastructure is very important. Without sufficient, affordable, and available digital connection, it is difficult for us to talk about digital transformation. Digital infrastructure is the foundation of digital transformation. So we have three objectives in our transformation, not only in the economy, business and economy, but also the government and even the society itself should be transformed. The next slide. Yeah, this is what I already mentioned. There are 6 priority sectors, and there are 2 sectors as the 2 sectors are the priority. The agriculture, we implement the integrated farming, and also we call it smart farming. The next one, also in the maritime or fishery sector, we introduced the smart fishery ecosystem for the aquaculture and capture fishery sectors. So there are our initiative for the maritime and fishery consists of 2. First one is the capture fishery subsector, and this next one is the aquaculture. The next one. Yes, I will not discuss in details, but before we introduce the digital transformation, we have to identify the value chain or the segment let's say in the agriculture. So in the agriculture, we focus only on those 2 subsectors, horticulture and crop farming process. So basically the value chain almost same according to our assessment. There is farming input, production farming, and after production. So in each level, in each stage, basically we can introduce the digital technology to improve the productivity. The next one, and the next one is important based on our assessment. There are many issues in Indonesian agriculture sector based on our assessment. Yeah, let's say in agriculture, limited available quality of seed. Is this permanent issue? Yeah? I think my colleague from the Ministry of Agriculture can explain more about this. But this kind of issue, this kind of challenge that we have to face in Indonesia. And on this next one, in the planting and land maintenance, low productivity, 19% of MSME farmers are still using conventional method. Very limited the use of technology in the agriculture in Indonesia, and also in the fishery compared to the other sector like healthcare and education. The next one. The similar almost identical value chain for the fishery, which consists of 2, capture fishery and aquaculture. Basically, there are the input provisioning fishery management. In the process, there are capture fishery and the post fishery. All basically every stage require the digital technology. The next one, and now the current issue. What's the current issue? The most issue in next one. Next slide, please. Yes, This is one of few example, high value costs, high fuel costs, low fish vessel capacity for the capture fishery. For the aquaculture, limited usage of suitable land and aquaculture, insufficient farm management or pond maintenance, suboptimal implementation of good aquaculture practice. And the common issue also about limited access to market with poor logistics. This is very persistent in Indonesia, both in agriculture and in the fishery. And the next one is climate change, also the huge challenge of Indonesia for the future. So we basically need the digital technology in agriculture. There are many. We're working with many startups. There are many solutions, many innovation. Yeah. For example, for the smart or precision agriculture, very many sensors, Internet of Things we can use. Yeah, how to predict the weather, the availability of water sufficient, how to measure the availability of the water, the soil condition, the level of fertility, the best time to use fertilizer, how much it's required. And I believe that France has many technology dealing with this. But maybe we can have the support also from our French partner to make this kind of project much more efficient, or even if possible in the large scale. Yeah, the next one. And this is in agriculture. I already mentioned smart farming. This is the mechanism. Yeah. In the left side, in the picture, in the top one is the sensor to measure the weather, the condition of the weather, and the box below that are the sensor to measure the fertility level of fertility of the land. So we can save fertilizer because normally the farmer doesn't care how much. They don't know where's the best place, how to use the fertilizer efficiently. Then the second alternative about the drip irrigation, particularly in the dry area, dry region in the east part of Indonesia, in the Nusa Tenggara, for example, it is very important to use the drip irrigation so the use of water can be utilized optimally. The next one. This is just the program we have, yeah, the location, yeah, many location, the activity. I can skip this one. Just take a look at this slide so you have get some impression about what we are conducting in the last few years. Next one. Yeah, it is similar also. This is for use of weather and soil sensor technology in some area. The next one. It's for the drip irrigation also. We're focusing not in the Nusa Tenggara, but we try our pilot project actually in the Bandung Regency, in the West Java. There's some place in the West, even in West Java, there is very dry place that the water is very scarce, so we can use this kind of IoT technology drip irrigation. The next one. And this is for the digital technology for the capture of fishery. Basically, the technology much more advanced than the aquaculture. So this is the use of prediction weather, rain direction, yeah, mounted normally in the vessel. Potential location for visit can be identified, and application for online fishery marketplace. So post harvesting is very important because normally the fishers and also the farmer doesn't know how to sell. So we can use using the digital application to help them to improve their revenue from the harvesting. Yeah, the next one. I think I have a couple of last slide after this. Maybe you can go fast quickly. That's one. And this is the solution. Yeah, we developed our startup. Basically, the main ingredient, the main important tools here is water quality monitoring. We can measure the pH, oxygen level, temperature, biomass, etc. So for the shrimp aquaculture, it's very sensitive with the condition of the water. It is very important. So we can improve the productivity, the growth of the shrimp, and And we apply also the feeder automation. So everything become automatically, and the fisher can monitor remotely. Doesn't need to attend to visit the pond, etc., and the pond and etc. And the last one, I will skip the last one. Next one. I'll skip one. This is the location. You can see, you can take a look. And this is there are many technologies we can identify based on use case in many countries, actually. So for the case of Indonesia, we have to have the priority. Which technology is much more priority for Indonesia? Which more important in Indonesia for the use the pilot project? Maybe the last slide. Maybe please go ahead to the next slide. The last slide. We can skip this one. Yes. Last slide. Yes, this is the previous one. Okay, this is the future direction for Indonesia for digital adoption time horizon. Actually, we work together with our consultant, and so we cannot just apply the use of technology like IoT. We also focus how to help the farmer to improve their economy using so the use of e-commerce application, the use of digital lending. It is much more a priority, I think, in the next year for the farmer and the fisher. And also for in the maritime also, lending platform, satellite remote sensing become more important for them. So technology itself is not, should be focused on much wider application. The second one, I think my colleague from the Ministry of Agriculture can explain more. That normally the fisher, the farmer in Indonesia, majority they depends on the middleman. They depends on middleman. The middleman help everything, to provide the loan, to provide everything for their children, school, etc. So we have to find the solution to provide them with a better access to the market, so their economy in the future will be better. I think this is the end of my presentation. Next slide. I think it's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Pak Nyoman, I really thank you. Very interesting. I keep in mind my takeaway is Internet of Things. But when we are talking about Internet of Things, we are talking about connectivity, we are talking about investment, we are talking about money. And when most of your farmers and fishers in Indonesia are finally kind of self-employed, it is a bit challenging. So let's continue the discussion because we have lots of questions on already. Let's continue with Dr. Ade. From the Ministry of Agriculture. I'm sure that he can as well draw us a bit more of the landscape and about the bottleneck, and as well the solution provided by the government and the authorities to the farmers, because I'm deeply sure that it is a key issue. You're totally right. Today, data are allowing farmers to improve their revenues, etc. So, Dr. Ade, if you mind, if you can take the floor, it is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Pierre.
I appreciate. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Pierre. Good afternoon from Jakarta. If I may share my slide of the presentation. So if I may introduce a little bit, my name is Ade Chandra Dijaya, and I am the Director for International Cooperation Bureau under the Ministry of Agriculture. The major responsibility of our bureau here is giving facilitation for cooperation between all technical agencies under the Ministry of Agriculture with various foreign partners. Here under the Ministry of Agriculture, we have 10 DGs level, which dealing with like food crop, estate crop, horticulture, livestock, and also dealing with infrastructure and facilities of agriculture and also human resource development. And then our cooperation has been developed both with bilateral as well as the multilateral partner. And then the cooperation is dealing mostly on two aspects. One is we are trying to facilitate the market access of our agricultural commodities. And the second is mobilizing technical assistance in order to improve the quality and the competitiveness of our agricultural product. So if I may start my presentation, I will start by highlighting what Minister of Agriculture of the Republic of Indonesia has now been doing to address the global challenges on food crisis. Since we know that the global community are right now very much concerned with the impact of geopolitical tension, particularly crisis or war between Russia and Ukraine that disrupt the supply of food as well as the input of production, in particular fertilizer. And then also the impact of climate change, which still persistent, and also the unfinished impact of COVID-19 and also the population growth. So Ministry of Agriculture has been, doing transformation of our agri-food system to be more resilient and sustainable. And then we have already developed the strategic action called 5 ways of action in order to promote the transformation. And then after this, I will also talk a little bit how digital technology could leverage the impact of the 5 ways of action that we are doing right now. The first action is we are trying to increase production capacity, of course, in sustainable manner. When we consider the environmental impact of what we are doing on agriculture, since it has been, become also the global issues. The second is promoting local food-based diversification. Since, as you know, Indonesia is a huge country, ranging from the east to the west, with different agro-ecological zone characteristic. So each location has its own specific food. So we are trying to promote local-based food diversification. And the third is strengthening food reserve and logistics system. And again, we are trying to ensure the movement of food from the center of production to the center of consumption. And then also development of modern agriculture, including mechanization and digitalization. And then the last strategy is we are trying to increase export of agricultural commodities. We are doing those 5 ways action on the entire part of the value chain. As you know, value chain embraces various actors and various activities along the chains. So we are trying to promote digitalization in each part of the value chain. So we are trying to promote smart input provision, as Dr. Yoman has elaborated. We also apply digitalization to improve farmers' access to input, like increase farmers' access to financial sources, let's say increase farmers' access to fertilizers, and increase farmers' access to other input. And then we are also promoting smart cultivation, smart harvesting, smart handling, and of course, smart marketing. And then we did digital application in the whole part of this value chain. Though recently it's still like, it's not in integrated way. Like in digitalization in input provision is one program, digitalization in the cultivation, digitalization in the harvesting, digitalization in marketing. So what we are trying to do right now is to put the whole part of digital technology into a synergy in order to improve the impact of digitalization. So what we are doing to promote synergy, Ministry of Agriculture has developed a program, the so-called Strategic Command for Agricultural Development, when we are trying to put all digital application on the whole part of the value chain into synergy. So we set up the so-called agricultural war room, Pak Nyoman, we call this. We established like one room in our office here, which is equipped with digital technology. When this room becoming a center of data on information that provide input for policy making process. So this agricultural war room is connected to a similar office at the provincial, district, and sub-district level. And then right now we have already, put in connection around 5,700 sub-district connected digitally to our agricultural war room. And then the people work in the field are our extension workers. So our extension workers are the one who work directly with the farmers, capture the need of the farmers, identify the problem of the farmers, what kind of program that being needed by the farmers. And all those information are delivered through digital connection to our agricultural war room. And then at the same time, our official here could also give comment or feedback to the input through digital connection. So this Office of Strategic Command for Agricultural Development should assume at least 5 functions. One is as the Center for Agricultural Data and Information, and then Center for Agricultural Development Movement, Center of Learning, Center of Business Consultation, and also Center for Developing Marketing Partnership. So this is the whole system that we are working right now. Of course, lots of things that we need to improve, like digital infrastructure, and then the institutional setting on how to manage the connection, and then also how we could manage, let's say, the raw data that come from the field, and then data processing that could process the data which ready as an input for policy making process. So, and then I would end my presentation with how we use digital technology to promote export. So we use here digitalization as, an effective matchmaker and trading facilitator. When digital control could connect or bring information on the market requirement of the consumer to the production center. And then we are trying to customize our product to comply with the standard requirement of the consumer. So digitalization could, on the one side, bring the information of our product to the market. This is the product that we have. And then we could see how the response of the consumer, and then we could see the gap, what the need of the consumer, and then what the existing quality of our product, and then what intervention we could do to make our product comply with the requirement of the market. And at the same time, we could also bring, the need of the farmer, of the consumers to the production center. And then we could also, let's say, develop a traceability system and a good connection and information between production and the customer. So I think I would stop here as the trigger for our discussion. And then I do hope that we could, further discuss it during the question and answer session. Thank you. And
definitely.
I screen to you, Pierre. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ade. I really appreciate, and definitely we have lots of questions. Let's pursue with the Indonesian side, and then after the Indonesian picture, we will, apologies, we will interrupt a bit for listening His Excellency, but I'm sure that Jean-Marc and Thomas, who are in the starting block, will highlight then after how it works in France and in Europe, holistically speaking. Jean-Marc in Indonesia, indeed, but you will share your thought, your experience. Thomas, who is leading in vivo subsidiary for the digitalization SMAG company, will definitely, according to the cooperative you have in Indonesia, will draw his views. So, Mr. Boma, we listen to, how are you? Selamat malam. We listened about the Ministry of Agriculture.
Okay.
What's about yours? How
Okay.
it works with you?
Okay. Let me share my screen. I think it should be this one. Can you guys confirm that you can see my screen like clearly? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Good morning for our colleagues in France. Of course, my name is Boma, and I am working as a fishing port analyst at the Directorate of Fishing Ports, DG of Capture Fisheries, Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries. I am very excited to be part of this event. Thank you very much for the invitation. And of course, my talk will share some similar topics with our colleagues from the Ministry of Information as well as Ministry of Agriculture. But for my talk today, I will focus more on fishing ports and fisheries product that more linked up to my field of work in Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries. First, I would like to review how it works in Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries. We do have 6 units. And out of 6, we have 5 technical units, and I am myself, I work in Capture Fisheries. In general, we have 1 shared data central system in the Secretary General. So each DG will have their own system that was long time ago developed independently. But of course, with the development of technologies, there is more needs of data sharing, and we also believe that it would bring benefit for all. So for my working unit, we do have a fishing port online information system. This system offers a lot of data, including the landing data, fleet data, the vessel visit, estimated market price. It gives some information to the public, and then other port data. For example, let's say water consumption, ice consumptions, etc. And this system is supported by the traceability system, which is a very, I would say, it's like trending topic right now in the seafood market. So yes, Indonesia, we try to implement this traceability system. However, our system, I would say, it's not as advanced as what you guys have in Europe. So today I will focus more on this system and what are the challenges and how can it bring, more benefit to the stakeholders in Capture Fisheries. So here are the layout of our website right now. It's a typical government website. It's more of like mainly used for statistical information reporting, and maybe we do have some program registration for a fisherman, but then it's less interactive. If you're a business looking to find some raw materials, it's kind of tough, to look for that information. So of course, in the future, Indonesia wants to access or also play a bigger role in the seafood market. We need to utilize this potential in the digital technology to offer our products better in the international market. Now, I have already mentioned to you, we do collect a lot of data. It is part of our mandate. So we have a system with a rich data system, I would call it like that. But then we need to know the challenge and limitations. Oftentimes we working in a government institution, we are limited of what we can do and what we cannot do. So here I put the group into government related mandate. We do a data sharing system, we facilitate communication, but then also we are all aware that right now e-commerce is a thing, and this side is mostly developed by private sector. However, we believe that in the future, if Indonesia wants to reach international market, we need to regulate them. We also need to link up our program and maybe some cooperatives between countries to be included as an information there, so that the product being put on those applications is more compelling, is informative, and it's also offer some sort of guarantee for the buyers. Okay. So now I'm going to move to some example that we have right now. So if you go to your browser, you can go to some websites in Indonesia right now. For example, Aruna, which is seafood specific. It would be company to company, like seller to buyer interaction. You can do it there. They do also have some phone application as well. We also have some other websites like big e-commerce website like Tokopedia and Shopee, you can find fish products there. And last one, we also have Fishlock, similar to those websites. They also offer a fish product. But then the question is, can this product be accepted in the international market? So there is a high potential here. There are regions with a rich abundance of materials, but then they don't know where to sell the products. So then, in short, for captured fishery sector, we feel that there is a high needs for a link to the traceability system, so that the product that we have, Indonesian seafood, can be welcome like in the international market, as well as, of course, the domestic market. Right now, this model works for the national market, but then, of course, we do realize that the international market, they have like higher standard, they have certain certification that producers, they need to comply with. Okay, now I just jump into this food security and bilateral cooperation. If we talk about food security, first, of course, we need the abundance of the materials file. Like, we need to have a good amount of resources. And then again, this thing, quality and traceability, is a big part in the seafood market right now. Here you can see the picture there. I happen to have the opportunities to visit one fishing port in France. And in Europe, they introduced to us that they do have this electronic traceability system. As you can see at the bottom corner, there is a QR codes that anybody can use their phone and check out and get information about that. This is something that we feel that it can bring the seafood price in the market high because of this advancement in technology. Of course, at the end of the day, everyone needs an access to the market, either it's domestic or international market. So we think in the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, yes, seafood export has been going for a long time, but it doesn't come easily. There is always a problem of rejection. Maybe there's a problem of quality, maybe a missing certification. If I think Indonesia can resolve all of this issue, it can bring better opportunity of our products in the international market. Of course, on the right side, I listed some of potential cooperation. I think just a few weeks ago, our DG of Product Competitiveness was just in France to attend an expo. I think offline expo is also a good thing because you can see the real product, but then we can also initiate this communication through online meetings, online forums, or even an online catalog for a specific export product. That could be really helpful for both countries, And then one thing I noticed that in Europe, or any seafood like market, is that there is some product that is market driven. Either the shape, the fillet for seafood, as well as the certification and else. So those kind of things, I think we need to talk more about and discuss more about, because if we can find common ground, we can agree on the same quality or certification and quality of goods. That would be helpful for everyone, from the fishermen, for the middlemen, as well as for the big industry that is doing the export to the international market. Lastly, please allow me to highlight our cooperation right now that we have between Indonesia and France. So Indonesia right now, we are having a project, Eco Fishing Port project. This is in partnership with AFD France. The goal of this project is to reorganize and upgrade the facility of fishing ports. And within the project, we have a technical exchange partner with the Port of Boulogne. I think the part of organization is IFCCI de France. Within this, we do exchanges, During my visit, we learned that this port is the receiving hub. So they welcome products from anywhere in the world. And then from this point, they do quality control, they do transformation, and then they also cater for the market. Like, what do they need maybe in France? What do they need in Spain? What do they need in Netherlands? I think, and we think in KKP, if this information, what do you guys need, can be brought in Indonesia and can be some of the quality check or some of the handling practice be introduced in our fishing port, we believe that it would be beneficial for us, especially giving a better market access for Indonesian product. I think this one concludes my talk for today. I thank you for the time and I look forward for the discussion session. Thank you very much.
Boma, Papoma, I really, wow, I'm really impressed about your presentation and your vision and what you are doing. For sure, I will come back to you then after. First, listen to the kind introductory message of His Excellency Omar. I hope, Passandri, it works. Thank you.
My dear colleague, President of IFCCI, Mr. Sebastian Gauthier, and my dear friend Pierre-Marie Relecom, distinguished speakers and dear participants. Bonjour, good morning from Paris, and welcome to you all to today's webinar. Before we begin, I would like to thank you for joining us in this interesting seminar today. Today's webinar is a part of our webinar series co-organized by the Embassy of Indonesia in Paris and Indonesia-France Chamber of Commerce and Industry, IFCCI. We have an exciting lineup of panelists and interesting topics on the future of Indonesia's agriculture and fisheries in the digital era. Dear colleagues, one of the challenges of the world that the world is facing today is food security. As the population continues to grow, the demand for food also increased. The current global situation also brought negative impact on the availability and sustainability of food. To address this challenge, we need to focus, and we would like to also take this focus today on the sectors that could provide sustainable food, namely agriculture and fisheries. If we compare this sector to the mining sector, agriculture and fisheries are more or have more sustainable and have greater potential for economic growth in long term. These sectors could provide jobs and income for millions of people while also contributing to the overall development of the economy. These two sectors are also amongst the sectors with great potential that would contribute to the growth and development of the Indonesian economy. In 2020, there are around 33.4 million farmers engaged in all commodities in the agricultural sector. And from this number, the share of Indonesian youth working in the agricultural sector in August 2020 increased by 43% compared to the previous period. And as the young generation is native digital literacy, there is a very promising opportunity to use the application of the digital technology to increase the supply chain and marketing for Indonesian agricultural products. During the G20 Agricultural Minister Meeting Global Forum in Bali last September, the Indonesian Minister of Agriculture emphasized the role of young generation in the agriculture sector. They can become innovative entrepreneurs and play their roles as producers, distributors, marketers, and sellers using innovative technology and business models. For example, there are now many online marketplaces, including social media platforms in Indonesia. It can be used to connect farmers with consumers and other buyers, allowing them to sell their products directly and avoid intermediaries. The use of digital technology in the fishery sector is also growing in Indonesia. The Indonesian government is increasingly encouraging fishermen to use technology. In this regard, the Ministry of Communication and Informatics has a priority program for 1 million fishermen to go online. The program addresses problems in the fishery sector through the development of appropriate tech applications, including the development of geolocation of fisheries area, the modernization of seaports, and also fish auction centers. In the aquaculture, Indonesia has also been developing digital fishing villages. This program is expected to increase the business efficiency of aquaculture fishermen and ultimately increase their income, of course. Overall, Indonesia has great potential in agriculture and fishery sector. These sectors still have a lot of room for growth. And furthermore, Indonesia has the advantages of being a country with large population and a diverse geography. These advantages offers many opportunities for these industries to thrive. In this connection, and as a country whose companies have a lot of experience in these fields, France could play a crucial role in helping Indonesia to develop these sectors. French companies have a strong presence in the agriculture and fishery sector. They have also proven their ability to support the sustainable development in these areas. By investing in Indonesia's agriculture and fishery sectors, France businesses can also contribute not only to secure the food value chain for the Indonesian domestic market, but also to the global supply chain. Dear participants and colleagues, before closing my remarks, I would like also to convey my highest appreciation to all panelists for providing their valuable time and knowledge to share with us today. I am confident that our prominent panelists today will be able to give us an update on the prospect and potential investments in the agriculture and fisheries sectors in Indonesia. Allow me to end my remarks by assuring you that the Embassy of Indonesia in Paris always ready to assist the French businesses to materialize the investment in Indonesia. I wish you all a fruitful discussion. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Merci pas. Jean-Marc from CIRAD.
Thank you very much. So
please.
So I will share my screen. I have a bit more slides than should be for 10 minutes, so I will condense because the subject that you were speaking about actually is very topical, and I had few conferences on the subject already in Indonesia in the past weeks. So I asked for your indulgence. I did a mosaic of those previous conferences. So
perfect.
On the same subject, basically, but some of them were longer, so we will go fast. So I share my main slide there. So no, what I am doing. Share, c'est ça. Et I have to, yeah. So this subject is presented here with the slide about, with the background of CIRAD. I need to present CIRAD a little bit. CIRAD is a complex company because it has one side which is public research. We are on that side the former colonial institutes in Africa and other colonies, but we work now globally in all tropical countries on research for agriculture, environment, forestry, and inland fishery, not marine fishery. And that part is public, but we have also a part which is private because we are in France. Our status is EPIC. So we have a private activity, and we valorize the results of our scientists, the result of our research with startups, and also we do a lot of private consulting and private projects for the private industries. So first, when we speak about digital, CIRAD is already working since many years on the digitalization. And maybe some of you know already a CIRAD product, which is free. It's called PlantNet. It is something that you may have on your smartphone and that you use to take pictures on plants everywhere in the street and in every or trees or everywhere in the world as well. And it tells you with a degree of probability, according to the pictures that you do, the species of your tree. So it's a free product, and it's a case of citizen science, because in that case, all the citizens who are playing with the app, they continue to feed the database and to bring more data to the scientists. We have other digital products, and I will send you 6 messages today. One of which is digital agriculture can be smart and empowering. Here you have examples of different cropping systems. In that case, it's mango. And you see some of them are very sparse, some of them are looking more industrial. So you have intercropping, or you have extensive traditional, or you have export kind of agriculture. And we developed, that's an example. We develop digital products. In that case, it's called Fisheries. It will, on your smartphone as well, it will recognize the mangoes on the tree. And it recognizes the phenology. Phenology is a barbarian word to say the degree of maturity of the fruit. So if you're a small farmer and you have such a tool, you can know how many kilograms you have on the tree now, and how many kilograms you can collect now, how many kilograms you can collect next week or next month. So you can start to discuss better with the industry. And from this is another picture of the tool. I go fast, and you can work at a wider scale, at the plot scale, and then you can aggregate you can do a sampling and aggregate all the data. At the end, you have the yield estimate with a very good precision, and you know also how much is sellable now or in the future. It empowers you if you're a small holder, a small farmer, and it helps you if you are several of you able to have such a tool. At the end, you maybe form a cooperative, and you can form a very strong commercial force able to negotiate with the markets. So that's a way we empower the smallholders. And it works on many fruits. In the cases where it has been already demonstrated and validated here on the picture. The second message, I will take the case of palm oil. Indonesia agriculture is extremely wide, but one of the major features is palm oil, so I will take this as an example. But I could have a very similar message for the cocoa, for the vanilla, for many spices, for the coffee, and so on. So in the case of palm oil, beware of the production slowdown. Before to go to palm oil plantation or agriculture, we have to recognize that the demand for fat in the world is increasing, and it is related to the income of the countries and the growth of the income, and it is relating to the urbanization. And inside the demand for fat, the demand for vegetable fat is the biggest, because the trend is to replace animal fat with vegetable fat. So we need millions of tons of vegetable fat. Every year we need more. And the issue is that the developed countries have already reached their ceiling of consumption. Now they don't increase anymore. But the developing and emerging countries and the least developing countries are having a growth of their demand with their population that is tremendous. We can predict more or less that we will have the double of the demand in 2050 compared to now for vegetable fat. And vegetable fat, it comes from where? It comes from basically 4 plants: palm oil, soybean, rapeseed, sunflower, and 15% in the world come from other. But basically, we have only 4 plants. And the trouble is, rapeseed and sunflower are growing in temperate climate, and their area is already sailing. We cannot grow more. Soybean is also almost in the same situation. There is, unfortunately, some growth on the plantation of soybean, but in Latin America at the expense of the forest. In the case of palm, it's complex because the deforestation is finished. It has been done already. So now we are sailing in terms of space in the 2 big countries that are producing, which are Indonesia and Malaysia. and there is no much more increase on the demand of area, but the challenge is to increase in terms of productivity. So here you have, the major oils, and you have their maps in the world, and you see that the palm oil is one of these oil that is extremely concentrated. So the first producer and consumer in the world is Indonesia. The second is Malaysia. When you have these two, you have 95% of the palm oil in the world production, but all the rest of the world is using it. So this is a comparison of Indonesia and Malaysia in proportion, and you see that Malaysia has already reached its ceiling and is going down. Indonesia has not reached already its ceiling, but there is threats that it could reach it. So if you remind what I told you, the world is demanding more. Indonesia was a major producer. It is producing still with the increase, but there is a risk it could slow down. Another vision here in absolute numbers of the same thing. You have the world demand, you have Malaysia production in Indonesia. So that is a risk that is hovering over our heads in Indonesia. The third message is the dependent smallholders are changing, and they are the key of the reform or the future. So first, you have here a map of where the palm is planted, and if you look at the yellow is the smallholders. They are the majority. In general, they are the majority of the planted area. Although, of course, you have in blue and red the industrial plantations, but by states is very different. In some states, the smallholders are majority, and in other, I say states, sorry, provinces. In other provinces, the private industries are in majority. But in the global, the smallholders are a big force. But if you look at these are the hectares, the area where it is planted. If you look at the production, here is the production. The tons which are produced is very different, because the smallholders, although they have large surfaces, they produce very little. And even if the industry has less surfaces or not so much surfaces, they produce much more. So we have a situation where the industries are already producing a lot with their situation. And if we look now, if we zoom to the smallholder issues, what you have here is, I will show you a graphic of the frequency of the independent smallholders according to their production, to their ability of production. So in tons per hectare, the classical smallholders, the major frequency is between 1.5 and 2.5 tons per hectare. They produce very little because they are not digital, they don't have the best seeds, they don't have the best practice, and so on. But you see the emergence in blue of a new class of smallholders who are producing around 7 tons per hectare and per year of equivalent of oil. And these new smallholders, if you look at them, you see that they're already digital. They're already using the latest seeds and improved varieties. And they have plenty of organizations and way of working that are signing a new wave of something that is happening now, an emergence of a new phenomenon. And we call, between scientists, we call this emergence, this phenomenon, the emergence of the smallholders 4.0. Which is very interesting. They are already grasping the digital tool with their stuff. There is a immense market there that nobody is really tapping. If you look today at the situation in millions of hectares and millions of tons, in red, the industrial plantation, in green, the smallholders, that is what is produced. What is used, the million hectares, million tons, what is produced. If we do the potential of what they could produce once they have their agriculture revolution, which is including digital, but not only, you have also genetic variety and so on, in sustainable agriculture. If you see what could be the possible agricultural revolution, it would give that. You would have a tremendous growth, both in industrial plantations, but the biggest growth would be in the smallholders. This is because today they have the lowest productivity. So this is where you have the largest possibility. So you could produce twice what Indonesia is producing today, just not by increasing the area, just by going better more sustainable and more digital and better varieties in your practices of today. This reasoning that I give to you now in the palm oil, we can also replicate in many other sectors of the agriculture itself. My message 4 or 6 is, we're speaking of agriculture. There is not only mango or palm oil or coffee, we have also the issue of the biofuels. And if you look at biofuels, do not put all the eggs in the same basket. What you have here is a slide that I borrowed from Pertamina, and where you have in black the growth of the consumption and the imports of oil and gas, mostly oil, petrol, by Indonesia, and you see in light blue the diminishing production. So Indonesia produces less and needs more because of the increase of its population. So one of the solutions is another slide of Pertamina to produce biofuel. One way is green diesel. Green diesel is coming basically from palm oil. But the other way is bioethanol. Bioethanol is basically coming from lignocellulosic material. So the waste of straw, the waste of herbs, the waste of non-use wood or use everything that is agricultural or from a plant and that is not used is of lignocellulose material. This can be used. And you can make a lot of bioethanol out of it. So these are the plants. Problem is, we totally forget that in the actual production, when we produce a usable product in green, it is only 15 to 30% of the biomass. This is what we use. 70 to 85% of the biomass is purely residue, and we burn that, especially in Indonesia. And this is a fantastic mine of possible use for lignocellulosic residues to make ethanol, butanol. When I say roots, is because you can make the biofuel, but you can make also the biochemistry that is behind, and you can make molecules, you can make materials, you can make very advanced added value products. The fifth message is look for the added value, by the way. So you know now that we have existing chemistry that is ruling the world, which is the petrochemistry, but we have the emergence of biochemistry, oleochemistry, or lignocellulosic chemistry, which can do all what the petrochemistry is doing it, just more expensive because petrol is very cheap. The nature has worked a million years before to prepare it. When we use our bioproducts, we need to do the work that nature did, so it's a bit more expensive. But it is totally possible to do all the biopolymers, to do polystyrene, to do plastic, like, you know, the plastic that we use for the doors and the windows and so on. So we can do everything with those. So here we have a fact that today Indonesia is sending the raw material away and has very little investment yet into capturing the added value by having those chemistry locally. Today, most of those industries in Europe, for example, they are in Netherlands. This is where you have the concentration of the oleochemistry and biochemistry that makes all those products. The future would be that Indonesia invests into those routes as well to capture the added value. An example of that is these polystyrenes for a luxury brand of ice cream in Germany. And the polystyrene was made before by petrochemistry, and nowadays this brand is doing the same polystyrene by pure biochemistry, using the waste of the agriculture. So the challenge is to have the added value, which is in yellow here, mostly in Southeast Asia, and you see the added value is mostly in Europe, the higher added value. So the challenge is one day maybe Southeast Asia is able to cover all the range of the added value. So that is food for thought when we think about the future of the agriculture and the sectors around them. And last message is, do not forget to understand that we have a landscape. And so for that, we need to have a landscape approach of our agriculture, because agriculture is not like in Indonesia, it's not at all like in the US, where you have hundreds of kilometers of corn and on the same landscape everywhere. In Indonesia, it's a mosaic. You have forests, you have plenty of different patches of different kind of agriculture. So to that, you have also to realize this is an ancient map of a very important factor that is showing you that in this region where we are looking, you recognize Southeast Asia, not only Indonesia, but also Malaysia and Philippines. we have the world hotspot of biodiversity. You have more botanic genera here than you have in Amazon or in Congo Basin. So, and when you get out of this zone, these are the black lines, you lose genera. So you go outside, you step from 400 botanic genera to 200, or from 300 to 200, or from 600 to 300. So we are in a zone where the agriculture makes that every farmer, be industrial or be a smallholder, when he manage his farm, he manage that in a natural environment with natural plants. He's managing a complexity, a botanic complexity that is way more complex than everywhere in the world. So we have those issues of disappearing species, disappearing forests, and so on. But there is more complexity here than everywhere else. So a way to look at it is to look at the landscape level, not only at the farm level. And for that,
definitely,
we scientists, I think this is my two last slides, so I'm finishing with that.
Yes, because we need to accelerate a bit. Yeah. I have lots of questions, okay, and I want to listen to Thomas.
So, yeah, just to tell you, we are working on this phenomenon, the emerging smallholders, with the landscape approach, where we look at the forest and agriculture space landscape. This work is between CIRAD and the Indonesian government, of course, and we invite the private sector to step in those networks working on those questions, because this is the future of having holistic approaches. Thank you very much.
Merci, Jean-Marc.
I will stop share and then let's go to the discussion.
No, thank you, Jean-Marc. It is very interesting. I saw Boma saying lots of things. So, but first, Thomas, you as the digital company entity from InVivo, which is the French largest cooperative. What do you see? What do you feel? How do you assess what Indonesia is doing now, the challenges, and typically what digital can bring in terms of value in order to ease and improve the farmers' revenue and fishers' revenue as well? Thank you, Thomas. We don't hear you. We see your screen. Thomas, we don't hear you at all. Your mic is disconnected. No, we don't. Mama, waiting for Thomas. What is your feeling about what you heard until now? Because you are, as said Pauma, you are from that young generation, so totally digitalized. How do you feel the things, Boma? Your mic is off.
Was it for me?
Yes, for you.
Okay. Can you repeat the question again? I'm sorry.
Thomas, you come back once. Thomas, you come back once your mic is on. The floor is waiting for you, so no worries. Boma, please.
Yeah.
According to what you heard until now.
Yeah.
What do you feel? Today, we can say that we are talking about obstacles, solutions, but we see as well obstacles. You have still challenges to face. We're talking about regulation, because things that must be regulated and well guided. So tell us a bit.
Okay. Yeah. So what I observed so far is that the market itself is developing much more faster, given the technologies we have. More and more people have more interest on, like for my case, like seafood, like how to access like good materials.
Do you hear me?
Okay.
Way. We hear you, Thomas. Welcome.
I'm
Boma,
really
sorry,
for
I
the-
interrupt you.
Okay.
Let's come back to, because I'm sure, according to Thomas' experience, Smike's experience, you will take the opportunity to element a bit your thought and what you were saying. Please, Thomas.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry for the technological issue. As you know, in digital, we always have are facing issues. Yes, thank you for the invitation. I'm glad to be there. I'm talking in the name of SMAG, which is a in vivo subsidiary. We are like an old player, I would say, in the era of digitalization of agriculture. SMAG stands for Smart Agriculture. I've heard a lot of smart during those presentations, and you'll see that this is a journey that we started in the early 2000s. And we have a lot of experience in France, but not only. And we have small experience in Indonesia that I want to share with you. So just as you mentioned, we are a subsidiary of the Union in Vivo, which is the Union of French Cooperatives, gathering more than 200 co-ops. We are owned by farmers and we are working for farmers. And we are based, SMAG, into the agricultural business unit of In Vivo, which is named BioLine. SMAG, what we do, we are developing digital ag services platform. So in few figures about SMAG, and then we are entering in the digitalization itself. SMAG, it's a small company, but we are gathering more than 140 employees. We have more than 30,000 end users, farmers, agronomists, technicians, advisors that are using our solution around the world. We gather more than 400 customers and we operate on more than 10 million hectares. We are specialized in agriculture. We are not talking about fishery. It is our expertise. If we talk about digitalization and digital farming, what is our experience on that? And I'm not claiming that I have the global knowledge, but only my experience. Everything is about data management in digitalization of agriculture. So you have to generate the data, you have to aggregate the data, you have to share the data. But to do that, you have to bring added value to each player in the value chain of the agriculture. So you have to involve the end user. If you want to build something around digital farming, if you want to enhance the power of the farmer to market their products, if you want to bring traceability to the food chain and so on, you need to involve the end user, each end user into the digital era. So to do that, you have to be able to connect the farmers between themselves. We saw that before that some smart tools have been developed, but then you have to aggregate those data to empower the farmer to be able to sell their product and to show the good practices, for instance. But you shouldn't only focus on farmers, you have to focus on different players, such as all the other stakeholders. And each of them should find some added value using your global solutions. And the topics are very different. It can be precision farming, it can be input management, it can be input supplies, it can be the marketing of the goods, it can be sustainability in emerging countries. And I've been working a lot in Brazil also. We heard about soybean. I've been working in soybean in Brazil. We always have to show the good practices, what is good, in order to sell the product and the goods on some markets. Also, there are more and more constraints on CSR and show the social impact and environmental impact of the agriculture, because agriculture is linked to the global ecosystem. We are not farming in one place of the world and selling the good in other places. It's a global vision that we need to address. And of course, more and more, there are more intelligence, more AI solutions that are bringing added value, as we saw just before, with some prediction tools or smart tools that enable new information to be gathered. So what we do on that, we bring, like in this orange arrow, we bring a range of solutions that are not targeting only the farmer on the left-hand side, but all the players around the food chain. So we bring solution, what we call farm management software for the farmer. Then we bring solution for the experts, the agronomists, the people that make scouting, the people for the ag industry to operate and to exchange information with the farmers. And in the end, we have some vertical solution that allows players in the industrial way to aggregate the data and to combine them with the plants, with the transformation of the product till the consumer. So this is what we aggregate as SMAG. We handle the follow-up of the information through the chain. So this might be conceptual, but what you have to know is that we are gathering more than 20,000 farmers, not only in France, in Europe and abroad, using our solution. But to make a farmer use a solution, you have to bring value. Not only, you have to be simple and easy. So this is another way of showing, but I'm going to speed up my presentation. So the two key pillars, I would say, if you want to digitalize agriculture, first, you have to rely on really easy to use solutions. Of course, mobile first. A lot of those new smallholders that have been presented earlier are people with a smartphone in the end. So they can use different apps, they can use a solution, but it should be easy. It should be with maps. It should be bringing some added value. And this is the second step. You have to bring easy to use solution, and you have to bring added value to your platform, meaning that your solution needs to aggregate value, to bring to each player some advantage to handle a better its job on a daily operation. To be more specific, I wanted to highlight some topics to you. And one use case that we have that is developed in Indonesia is a rubber web platform. So what we did is that we gather with natural rubber producer, which are tire maker in that case. And tire maker, they wanted to show that the natural rubber production was produced in a good way. So what has been made is we worked with them and we developed the technical and the technological approach. What we are showing here, it's exactly what has been shown earlier. Agriculture in Indonesia, such as in other countries in East Asia, but in other countries also, is mostly performed by smallholders that are aggregating in plantation, in dealers, and into the mills. And on the right-hand side, you have the tire and the glove makers. How to gather information from those smallholders to the company, to the big industrial companies, empowering each player. So that's what we did. And we deployed, for instance, a rubber way initiative, which is an app that is running a statistical approach of the CSR audit risk, and making it interactive, and every player in the different countries where the plantation are, where all the smallholders are, you can run those kind of interviews to show how good the practices are regarding, for instance, CSR topics, but it can be other topics. It can be traceability and so on, and you can be ranked, and then you can follow this information to the different player of the chain. So this is just an example, and that was to be very concrete, but you have to know that, for instance, today, through this Rubber Way initiative, we are following more than 30% of the global natural rubber production all over the world, including partially Indonesia. And that could be something very concrete to accelerate, because I know that in Indonesia, we are not so yet that much deployed, but that could be something very interesting to discuss about. So I made it very short. Of course, I have plenty of things to say, but this was just to show to you that digitalization, it's not complex. It's just to be very pragmatic and to bring the solution, understanding the reality of each player. There is sometimes a lack of connectivity, but lack of connectivity doesn't mean that you cannot digitalize. You can bring solution, you can bring offline, online solution that can make the process move forward and be integrated in a global approach. So that was what I wanted to share with you.
Thank you, Thomas. Very interesting. So back to Pak Boma and Pak Nyoman. Finally, how far is the implementation of digital technology in Indonesia to the benefit of agriculture and fish, to the farmers and the fishers? How far are we? Pak Nyoman and Pak Boma, please.
Maybe Pak Boma first.
Boleh, Pak, izin. Okay, I think in my opinion, like how far it is, the effort is there and it keeps getting more and more popular for sure, right? Yes, from the government side, I mean, more and more certification and more like standard procedure can be reviewed and can be introduced, reviewed, and checked by anyone through a digital tools, right? For example, those traceability application or systems, right? They have QR codes. Anybody can look for information, more information about the product, how it was like fish, where did it come from, etc. It's there. You know, it's like, I think in general, because now the like people's awareness about using digital gadget like technology, it's very familiar for them. You know, it's not such a burden for them when using the phone. So I feel that the progress we are making is fairly good, since that we are adapting to the way people use technologies. I can give you an example. A long time ago, I mean, we introduced a program for a fisherman insurance, as well as, you know, e-logbook system. Long time ago, we tried to, you know, introduce it with some forms, and then we change it into like manual input through a computer. At the end of the day, after a few trial and errors, we talk with them, and you need to talk with the stakeholder, like what works for them, because a lot of time in the production process, you need to do a lot of additional work when you're talking about certification, quality of products, and providing proof of everything you do for your products. So we need to be careful in terms when we're talking about digitalization, that I agree with what Thomas said, that we need to add values for each step we do, because we need to understand that digitalization, as easy as it sounds, it is still additional work for them. However, at the end of the day, I feel very positive about it, and I can see that a lot of ministries in Indonesia, we have been working with multiple institutions, doing exchanges, getting to know what works and what is not working in terms of digital technology, in effort to bring better economy for our stakeholder, like fishermen. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay. Pak Nyoman?
Yes. Thank you. I'd just like to add what Dr. Boma just mentioned. Based on our experience, we are focusing on the crop agriculture and horticulture, and also aquaculture. Basically, the agriculture and fishery, it is still like behind the other sector when we are talking about digital transformation. What is the indicators? The first one is the government initiative, not quite a lot, even though my colleague just mentioned, make a presentation, but the concrete project related with digitalization is not many. So the first indicator is government initiative. The second one is the human resources. The capacity of our farmer, our fishers to adopt the digital transformation is still lag behind. And still we are talking about the adoption, many elderly farmer, elderly fisheries, it's very difficult when they have to adopt the new technology. The last indicator we would like to introduce is the number of startups. There are not many startups in the agriculture and fishery in Indonesia compared to the other sectors. Education compared to other sector like healthcare and the other like logistics. So this is a huge challenge for us in Indonesia. Our big challenge, of course, I think Mr. Foyce Thomas just mentioned, yeah, of course, infrastructure is still important issue here. When we are talking about infrastructure, of course, it is possible, yeah, offline, online, yeah, but normally sometimes it's complicated. So this is another issue we have to address. Our concern in our Ministry of Communication and Informatics is about the adoption. When we facilitate the farmer and fishery for the digital technology, there is no guarantee that they will continue to use the technology. So we call it the sequence is when after the awareness that the technology is usable, then they have the access to use the technology. They have the sensor. They have the access to the sensor, the technology. If they have experience, then they will adopt. Not go back to the old way when they're doing. I think this is very important issue we have to address. I think Mary, I think this I can answer from your question.
Okay. I wanted to listen to Madame or Ibu Vasiliki from OECD. Floor is yours, Vasiliki.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. This was a fascinating discussion. I work at the OECD Development Center in a division that's called Economic Transformation and Development. And actually, we work a lot with developing and emerging economies on transforming the agri-food sector and also on harnessing the ocean resources for transformation. So we have worked closely with Chile, Dominican Republic, Egypt, for example, and on the ocean side, a lot with the EU outermost regions. So I wish I had all of you in the discussions we have been having at the OECD because there's so much to learn from Indonesia. This was an extremely rich discussion to listen to. And I had some questions in my mind, but I think also they have been kind of answered already or hinted at during the discussion. One of the issues I wanted to ask a bit more, and I think Mr. Nyoman just mentioned this, is about the startups, because we're also working on startups in Asia and we're collaborating now with Indonesia, and we're going to have, I think, more talks among us. You mentioned it's a big challenge that there's not enough startups in the fishery or fishery-related sectors. So I was wondering if you could explain whether you're doing something for this to meet this challenge, or is there a future plan to deal with this? And the other is the issue of quality infrastructure. So metrology, standardization, and certification that is about exports, because this is also something of very high interest to us. We work closely with the German Metrology Institute. And one of the things that they mention is that it's not just about quality infrastructure in fisheries. Now that we're going into digital, you have this new technology that is completely horizontal, and you need new standards that are still in the definition stage. So I don't know if you want to comment, one of you, more about whether you're planning to update your quality standards, your quality infrastructure to deal with digital in general, and where agri-food fits into this, or whether it's something you have been thinking about. This is it on my side. Thank you so much for giving me the floor.
So who's willing to pick the answers? Jean-Marc.
Voilà.
I'm sure you have something to say.
Actually, I'm not specialist of the fishery sector, but what I can discuss about the sectors is that we have indeed a very strong discrepancy between some sector where we have an over-representation of micro and small enterprise that are already very digital. Because nowadays, when the young people are creating a new company, they go directly to digital. And you have some sectors where you have a lot of representation of that, but you have traditional sectors, I put, with brackets like this, specifically in agriculture, where it is still underrepresented. But that is the national statistics. But what we observe as CIRAD is we observe an emergence on the field. It's still very few people. The numbers are not big, but we see an emergence of digitalization among people in those traditional sectors. If the fishery sector is like the agricultural sector, that probably you should have also there already some emerging digitalization. We don't know yet why. We don't know if it is. We know we have some for the agriculture. We have some hypotheses. You know that in Indonesia, in the past, the agriculture was spread with the transmigration scheme. People were too many in some parts of the country, or where you have a volcano risk or whatever. People were proposed from other parts in Indonesia, like in Borneo or in Sumatra, to be in and given land. And that the first generation of those transmigration farmers, they were surviving. They were planting and surviving. But we now are the third and sometimes fourth generation, and their kids have been to the school. Some of them are entrepreneurs. They inherit the land of the parents. They still have the plots, but they may be entrepreneurs in the city in a different sector where they are already confronted to digitalization. And they import digitalization in agriculture because of that. That's the kind of phenomenon that we see. I don't know if it is answering at all to your question, but it's one of the phenomena that we see emerging in Indonesia. I find it absolutely fascinating, and I'm sure the government can help that to go even faster.
But if I'm not wrong, we observed that for the last for the last decade, the rate of farmers decreased for 10 to 15%, if I'm not wrong. But thanks to digitalization, it is attracting more and more young entrepreneurs and young people.
Yes, sir.
Under your control, Pani Oman and Paboma. One query, one question I have, because we are in between friends, in between France finalists and Indonesian people. We are both two agricultural countries. We have two different, or we are at two different stages of experiencing digitalization. We in France, our agriculture is a bit more mature, but because it is a bit more mature, it takes time to go to digitalization. You know, in France, we're a bit conservative. However, Thomas, and in vivo, because it is a cooperative, you in Indonesia, you have lots of COP. How can we cooperate together between France and Indonesia in sharing experiences in digitalization, in agro business as well, agro and fishery, because at the end of the day, the topic is how we can bring value to one to the others. And I think it has to be reciprocal. It is not only French to bring value to Indonesia, it is as well Indonesian to bring value to France or to Europe as well.
And Pierre-Marie, this is what is very interesting in digital era, because it doesn't come from one place to another. It can come from everywhere. Digitalization is not going the same way and at the same pace in different places of the world. But I can assure you that agriculture is very moving forward very fast on digitalization. France has its history in digitalization. We are in an era with a lot of regulation, so it has been fostering the usage of digitalization. And in a way, what has been said earlier is very important. Digitalization shouldn't bring more work to the farmer. It should simplify it. For instance, we have many, you said 180, I don't know how many agri-tech startups there are today in France. But the topic, if everybody is targeting the farmers isolating, then the farmer is completely lost in the different possibilities that the digital solution offers to him. So you have to bring one-stop shop, I would say, for the farmer. And this is where the cooperatives, this is where the different organizations, and I think that this is a way we could imagine cooperation with Indonesia to find those gateways that could simplify and aggregate the access of those new technologies. And it's not only, I'm not talking about SMAG, I'm talking about every agtech player that is running on the market has a very good tools. For instance, what I've seen from Jean-Marc with the image capturing and so on, that is very, very relevant. But it shouldn't be isolated. It should be integrated in a global approach, bringing this tool plus other services to the farmer. And this is how you will move forward. And so this is exactly our vision and what we try to implement in France. And this can be some way something that we can share and we can work on. And what is very nice and very interesting in other countries, and I'm sure that Indonesia is like this, is that new services like this or new solution like this can emerge from, should emerge from very concrete needs, because the needs of a farmer in Indonesia is slightly specific. Agriculture is global and local. It's the same to grow everywhere, but it's always different. So you have to adapt and to fit the need, the local needs. But the global concept of aggregation, of simplify and use a global, a common backbone, this is, I think, constant. And this is some way we could cooperate with Indonesia.
Thank you, Thomas. Boma, what is your thought?
Yes, yeah, I agree with what Thomas just discussed. Yeah, moving forward, like what I see between Indonesia and France is that, of course, in a fishery sector, you know, there are like quite a few fundamental things in fisheries that, you know, can be helpful for each other. Okay, so I'm gonna share some experience when I visited France and I visited a fishing port. We observed that yes, they do have digital system, they do have like digital online, also real-time auction, but then first they are dealing with both frozen and fresh products. And somehow, you know, because Indonesia, naturally we are on a warm climate, and historically we see the US, the Europe as our export market, you know. We do have technologies that for like frozen products that can be welcomed very well in Europe, while in the same time, this technology was not needed, but can be used in France. Of course, the introduction, the certification, as well as how do they each implemented the digital system at each production system can be exchanged for the better products in the market. That's what I see, like what we can learn from each other. Because what works in France when we bring just as is to Indonesia might not work. And then the system that we have that been working for our production model, when we introduce it to France as well, it doesn't work. I'm gonna take an example, also another example about the traceability system. When we share with our traceability system, in Indonesia, it works better when it is centralized under the government. When I talk with some authorities in Port Boulogne, they say France did the similar thing with the centralized system, but it didn't work. it works better with this individual system at each port. Of course, each system will offer some benefits, also disadvantages. I mean, from our side, it is simpler for us if we have a national system. Therefore, you know, when we have our product get denied by the European Union, and then we know how to proceed it better, you know, we as a country can represent the company instead of letting the company dealing with the problem itself. Of course, this all can receive benefit from the implementation of digital system, you know, introduction and exchange of what system works, reflecting on each like characteristic of production model can be helpful for both France and Indonesia. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Boma. Because we are almost for ending, Jean-Marc, what would be your words?
Well, not so sure I have an opinion on that, because what I observe already is that the digitalization in Indonesia is it's complex, because we were comparing kind of France and Indonesia, but by some aspect, Indonesia is much more advanced than France. And some aspects, France is advanced. I mean, technologically, we have apps and systems in France that are maybe more advanced. But when you look at the detail of what Thomas was hinting at, you know, digitalization is not only, I don't know if it's Thomas or another one, or Pierre-Marie. It's not only a system or recognition of image, it's also a whole culture of use. And Indonesia has already integrated a fantastic culture of use of the digital. Maybe because of the average youth of the population, you know, the average population is very young. I don't know how many millions of Indonesians are born. The iPhone was existing already. So it changed completely the industrial landscape. To me, this is more, this is the key actually. This is the key, how we embrace the ability of Indonesia to be completely digital and how we use that. Because in my experience of CIRAD, our everyday challenges are more on the French side, because our Indonesian partners are totally ready to embrace, and they usually go faster than what we can do. So this is for me the real challenge today. I see Thomas, who is kissing. Yeah, we have been living the same things, I suppose.
Yeah, because as I said, I've been living also in Brazil, and I've seen that technology is the farmer in Brazil are very much keen to use technology than maybe in France. It's very easy to move forward and to make switch to a new innovation and innovative solution. So I think that France on that side, as you said, Pierre-Marie, can be a little bit more conservative.
If no one has something to add, I think we are almost arriving to the end of that webinar. I really want to thank you first, His Excellency Pak Umar, for his message. It's not Pak Boma, and I would love to meet you during my next stay in Indonesia by mid of January, Pak Nyoman as well. Let me wish you all Merry Christmas, season greetings to all of you, and I let the last word to my dear friend and President, Pak Sébastien, for concluding that webinar. Thank you, Jean-Marc, and thank you, Thomas. Sébastien, yours.
Thank you very much, Pierre-Marie. Thank you to all the participants to this webinar. I believe that was a very, very interesting and fruitful discussion on a key topic for Indonesia and, you know, the agriculture and the fishery sector. So once again, thanks to all the participants, and we wish and we hope that it was very insightful for everybody. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you to all of yours. And